Welcome to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And I'm Simon Provan.
Simon Provan, are you ready for the summer of soccer?
I am so ready, Baxter.
It is amazing. There is so much soccer. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to watch it all because there's just too much. But it's a good thing. It's a good problem.
And what's great about it is usually our summers of soccer consist of a bunch of international friendlies between club teams. But this is Copa America going on, the Euros going on. We got high-flying, top-level soccer.
Exactly.
People actually care about these games.
Exactly.
Well, for the most part.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, you also toss in there, as you mentioned, the International Champions Cup, those clubs that'll be here hanging out, and then you will have it all rounded up with the Olympics at the end of the summer as well, too, which I think is a nice way to end everything as well. I think the ladies are going to be hanging out in Rio saying, you know what, that's great, guys, do what you got to do, and then be like, okay, now here's some real soccer. Now this is how it's actually going to happen. But
see this gold medal? Yeah, we won that again.
Wow, look at that. Woo! Just like that. I know. Anyway, the U.S. women's national team, though, very, very good, and we're excited to continue to talk about them as we get closer to the Olympics. But we've got a packed show for you today. So many guests, so many different things. Simon and I basically are going to just step away because there's so many other people that are going to be here talking. We've got a huge list of people today, Simon. We have Brian Dunseth from Sirius XM will be here in just a little while.
Former national team
Former
player.
Nash, RSL guy as well. Lydia Williams of the Houston Dash and Australian national team will be here for our women's soccer spotlight. DC United goalkeeper Andrew Dykstra will be here, and then League Pool MLS goalkeeper, well, he'll explain it himself, is Trey Mitchell as well. He plays for Sporting Kansas City right now. He'll be here a little bit later.
But he swims in the league's pool.
He does, yes. Or maybe Sporting Kansas City's pool. I don't know. They probably have a nice pool there at Child Mercy. Anyway, all of those people will be here in some way, shape, or form, and we are thrilled to be here. And we want to remind all of you as well that if you love listening to the show, you can find it on Fridays at 11:30 a.m. Central Time on the Sports Podcasting Network. Go and check out all the great content that they have there. We've had so many great things happen to us since we've been there as well, Simon. We've heard just incredible numbers as well, too, for listeners. So thank you to all of you that have been listening.
Over 3,000 listeners.
It's incredible.
It's amazing.
Incredible.
So thank you. Thank you all very much. And for those of you who have been with us since day one, you know, you're the reason we are still here, and you're the reason we continue to grow. And if I can say one thing, the show will air as near kickoff for Copa America.
Yes.
We're trying to get to 500 likes. Why? Because we just want to say we got 500 likes on our Facebook. So if you're listening to the show and you haven't liked us on Facebook, we're just going to ask you. We don't bother you too much. We maybe post something once or twice a day.
We try to make it engaging.
Exactly.
We won't post any weird videos about cats or anything like that.
Unless they're playing soccer.
Hey, that'd be fun.
But anyways, go to our Facebook page, Two Up Front, and click that like button. We'd greatly appreciate it.
Either that, or you can find us on Twitter as well, too, can't you, Simon?
You sure can, at Two Up Front Soccer. He is at Baxter Colburn. I'm at Simon Provan.
Yes, indeed. And if you ever want to contact the show, voice your opinion about anything, you can do that, or you can email us at twoupfrontsoccer@gmail.com, or visit our website as well, twoupfrontsoccer.wix.com/twoupfrontsoccer.
It's funny, Baxter, mentioning the Twitter handles. I actually had a Twitter spat.
Did you?
Over the
Who were you
past couple
with?
days.
You don't strike me as a spatter very much, though.
Well, I'm not. I was just reporting. I was actually watching live, and I know we may get into this a little bit, but I was watching live the CONCACAF Champions League draw.
Oh, great, okay.
Because that's one of those tournaments that just interests me, you know? I think it's a lot of fun.
And your Timbers are in there as well, too.
They are. Anyways, I simply reported how FC Dallas had dodged a bullet not having to play Olympia from Honduras. They're the only team that's been in every edition of Champions League, right? I post that, and of course this guy writes back saying, "What, are you afraid of a team from Honduras?" And I had said to him, "Well, I'm not afraid of a team from Honduras. I'm just reporting the facts.
Yeah.
Do you not know your history about Olympia?" Well, he wrote back and said, "I'm a Pachuca fan. I know very well the history, but we've won this so many times that I'm not afraid of any team." Of course, I respond with that. Well, if you with a team that's basically more than 100 years older than any MLS squad, and that you spend basically what an MLS league spends,
it's a little different.
You should be winning the tournament a lot.
You should.
But then the last thing I challenged him with is, it's funny that you think I'm a Dallas fan when I'm actually a Portland fan. I'm just reporting what I'm watching.
Yeah, exactly.
He responded with, "I never thought you were a Dallas fan." And I said, "Well, that's good, but what's worse is that you think Tony Romo is a god."
Yeah.
His Twitter handle is at Tony Romo de God.
Oh,
so
gosh.
Once I saw that, Baxter,
Why?
He lost all credibility in my mind.
No kidding. Come on. I know this isn't an NFL show, but come on, man. Like, at least, don't be doing that. You don't do that. Tony Romo, far from that. Fun fact, though, I mean, Pachuca, Omar Gonzalez, they just won the Liga MX. Congratulations to them. I feel weird congratulating a Mexican team. But
hey, that's
Omar
right.
Gonzalez, though, I found out he has won, I believe it's 8. No, he's won 8 trophies in 6 years.
Is that right?
It's one of
MLS
those.
Cups and
yeah, I forget which one it is. It's either 6 and 8 or 8 and 6. I forget which one it was. But either way, though, he still won a ton of things.
That was my one thing to this guy. I actually did congratulate him on that, and not on that specifically, but just how many times Pachuca has won.
They're a very, very good team.
The thing is, I'm a realist. I know MLS has a long way to go with Champions League. But there's nothing wrong with just simply talking about other teams being good.
Exactly. That's
And,
not a bad thing.
But yeah, congrats to Omar. And actually, I think it was Edgar Castillo that was on the losing side.
Yes.
So pretty excited to have two Americans
U.S.
in that.
guys battling there, looking for their own summer of soccer. Well, you teased it briefly. Let's just look at it really quickly about the CONCACAF Champions League. What did you see? What do you like? Where's Portland at?
Well, it's this is Portland's only second time in here. I'm going to see how Caleb Porter handles it, but they've got a tough group. Anytime you have Saprissa out of Costa Rica in your group, they've got to be the favorites. They're playing another team from El Salvador that I actually don't know anything about. The Dragons is basically what their name is. So I don't see Portland making out of this group. I'll just hit on the MLS teams.
Sure.
The tough group here, Group C, you got both Vancouver and Sporting. If this were to be played today, I would take Vancouver over Sporting to get out of this group. They're playing Trinidadian team Central FC. The Red Bulls, in my mind, the Red Bulls and FC Dallas have the easiest groups in the CONCACAF Champions League. Red Bulls are taking on Alianza from El Salvador and Antigua FC from Guatemala. Now, Antigua has some decent history.
Sure,
I could see Antigua getting that win at home. Yeah. So New York could have a little bit of a fight with them, but I do see New York getting out of this group if Jesse Marsh has them playing at the capability that they can play at. And then Group H, Real Esteli FC out of Nicaragua, and then a name that I'm not even going to try out of Guatemala. I've never heard of either of these teams again. That doesn't mean that they're not good, so I want to throw that out there. But FC Dallas is a good team. They were the first MLS team to go down to Mexico and actually win it.
And I say, and FC Dallas is one of those teams, too, that is almost, because of the Hispanic players that they have, is almost like a de facto Mexican team at times,
in a way,
too.
yeah.
They're much more Hispanic than they are American.
And they're a young squad, so they've got a lot of endurance.
Exactly.
So out of the teams here, I would definitely see, out of the MLS teams, FC Dallas going the farthest. Do I see them going all the way to the championship? I will not pick an MLS team until they are able to spend more money and have greater depth.
True.
Or the calendar changes, and they find a way to have a happy medium between preseason MLS teams in the quarterfinals and basically preseason Mexican teams in the group stages.
I like that. No, I completely agree with you on that one. We'll keep an eye on that, and as you can kind of tell, Simon is fairly passionate about this, so we will keep you updated about that as we continue to move on, we get closer to everything happening as well. Some interesting, kind of sad-ish news. A couple big things happening in the Mexican and Colombian soccer national team worlds. One player, a Mexican player, was kidnapped, but he's been found, thankfully, and another one, a Colombian footballer, has been arrested as well. So kind of some sad news for both of these nations right now, Simon.
Yeah, Alan Pulido was kidnapped. He's the Mexican player who was kidnapped, but interesting, he was able to free himself and then call police for help. Little suspicious in here, though. There may have been drugs involved, and people are thinking, well, maybe, unfortunately, that he is part of that, which would seem odd. He does play for a very good European team, the Olympiacos out of Greece. They're one of the best teams in that league. But one of the investigators was talking about that. Here's what the investigator said. One of two things: either Pulido was the victim of the most incompetent kidnappers in the world, which I hope that's what the case is.
I hope so.
Or there's something they don't want to reveal because Pulido's kidnappers were so stupid they didn't blindfold him, tie his hands, or take away his cell phone. So it's extremely suspicious. And the only thing Pulido said at the press conference was, "Very well, thank God," when they asked him, "How are you doing?" or if he had any comments. Very well, thank God. That's all he would say.
Either he's completely just still stunned by the events, or there's some behind-the-scenes things that we don't know about.
Yeah, and I'm a very cynical man, admittedly, but I would like to think that this is exactly what you're saying, Baxter. But we got to keep our eye on this because there may be more to the story, or maybe they let him go with some type of threat.
Exactly. Maybe that's what it was. Say, hey, that next Olympiacos game we got a lot of money on. If you get, maybe pull a David V on slip and miss the penalty kick or something on your way. No, it's probably not like that. But either way, though, something to keep an eye on. And then somebody from Colombia as well arrested, has a little bit of a case of the Johnny Manziels.
Yeah. Pablo Amaro out of Colombia. He just missed the cut for the Copa America roster, but he was over here in the States. Not sure if he played in that friendly against Haiti, but as married men, I don't know about you, Baxter, but stories like this upset me to the nth degree.
Okay.
He was arrested for basically beating his girlfriend.
Oh, goodness. No, that upsets me, absolutely.
Yeah, apparently she wouldn't have intercourse with him.
Do things and stuff,
And he grabbed her hair. Apparently she had... what do you call that when you get hair?
Extensions?
Extensions that he ripped out of her hair.
Jeez.
And started to cut her hair with clippers, threw her on the ground. She called the cops. She said there's been a history of this with him.
Oh, really?
And this was the last
Do we know if he was
straw
under
for
the
her.
influence at all of anything?
It sounds like that he was.
Okay, I was going to say, I feel it's for me at least, I try to see the good in people. I have a hard time believing somebody in their right mind would do something like this. I feel like you have to be semi-diluted and not full of your charge and of your faculties to do something like this. But I know it has happened before with people that have willingly done stuff like that.
Well, and the disturbing thing is this isn't the first time something like this has happened, Baxter. When he was playing for Flamengo out of Brazil, he was arrested at a party full of prostitutes.
Boy.
So you said it right. The Johnny Manziel
It really is
Colombian
Johnny
soccer.
Manziel. Oh, my goodness. Who knew?
So you certainly hope that this man can turn his life around. But first and foremost, I hope his girlfriend is okay.
Exactly.
And good thing he's off the roster, because you don't want guys like this in the tournament.
No, I completely agree. All right, last thing we want to hit on really fast before we have to get to a break. Something about Giuseppe Rossi that's going on, Simon, that you are okay about.
Yeah, well, his agent, anyways, came out and said that Rossi made a mistake, that he should have chosen the U.S. over Italy. It wouldn't have made a difference.
His agent was the one saying
His
this?
agent was
Really?
the one, I think what's going on here is Rossi knows that there's a lot of American fans upset with him, and he's making a play for MLS. He's 28. He's getting to those years.
I was wondering how old he was. Okay.
Yeah. I think he's making a play for MLS.
Where is he right now?
He's still in Italy, and he's been playing there for... Actually, no, I'm sorry. Villarreal. Levante. He's on loan to Levante. Anyways, I know we got to get going here, Baxter, but I want to comment real quick about this. I was never upset with Rossi, because here's the thing. Yes, he grew up in the States, but he has never donned the U.S. soccer jersey.
Yes.
So I've never really understood...
On any level?
No.
Oh,
I've never understood the vitriol towards him just because he grew up here. Hey, we have guys that we've nationalized to play for the U.S. team, and haven't gotten upset about that. If you're going to be upset with anybody, go back to the days with Subutic, who played for the U.S. 20 national team. Now, Thomas Rogan cut him from that team, and then one of those Eastern European countries... Serbia, thank you, came calling for him, and he said, yeah, fine, I'm going to do that. But he played with the U.S. national teams all the way up to the U20s.
To be fair, back in the day, the center backs were a lot deeper at that point, too, so I can see his reasoning to say, you know what, I'm going to go place where I can actually play, instead of just having to sit behind all these other really good guys back in the day.
It was always interesting to me, though, that the vitriol was aimed at a guy who never donned the U.S. jersey, and somebody who had spent plenty of time with the U.S. program.
Exactly.
And yes, people got upset when Rossi celebrated against the U.S. after scoring that goal in the Confederations Cup. But again, he never played for the U.S. Get over
Rossi
it, people.
and MLS would be a lot of fun. We'll see if that happens. I think the Revolution, he would look good in the red, white, and blue of the Revolution. Anyway, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, Brian Dunseth of Sirius XM will be here to talk about Copa America and see if he can help us figure out what the heck is wrong with Jurgen Klinsmann. We'll be back with more right after this on Two Up Front. Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. I am Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
Simon Provan calling in from the car. Is that where you are, sir?
I am. As fans of the show know, I'm also a professional actor, and I was actually helping out with some auditions at a TV studio. So,
wow, what a nice guy. Holy cow, look at that.
I try, Baxter. I try. I fail a lot, but every once in a while it works.
Exactly. Well, you're part of this interview, Simon. We've got a great opportunity to speak with soccer analyst Brian Dunseth. You can hear him on Sirius XM. You can hear him if you're part of the RSL community, if you love Real Salt Lake. And you can see him pretty much anywhere, honestly, when it comes to soccer. He is a a very talented and exciting individual, and now he joins us here on Two Up Front. Brian, welcome to the show, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Let me know where to send that $20 for that intro. I appreciate
it. You are very welcome. Well, the address will be in the follow-up email. But, Brian, we are excited to have you here. I mean, I think we should talk about that just briefly. How many hats do you actually wear? Because your resume, I feel like, is very long, but right now you do so many different things. Do you even keep track of everything that you do?
At times it is a little bit difficult. But yeah, at the weekend, I'm usually a part of some television broadcast, whether it's Fox or ESPN or Real Salt Lake. During the week, do instant replay on Mondays, host Sirius XM FC, counterattack in the afternoons, do a radio show here locally with Real Salt Lake on ESPN Radio, have a TV show out here. And probably the thing I'm most I think pumped about at all times is Bumpy Pitch, the original winger, and now kind of our latest launch is something called the Terrace Club, which is a soccer subscription box, which is actually shipping at the moment. So
really,
everything's been really cool. Been really excited to be able to kind of carve out this kind of niche life after the game.
Wow.
After being told I sucked and I wasn't good enough.
Well, their loss was everybody else's gain, I feel like, though, with everything that you've got going on. But so we are excited, Brian, to talk to you a little bit about the Copa America roster. The final 23, Jurgen Klinsmann has named his men that he's planning to take to battle with him against some of the world's very best. And even from hearing from legends like Lionel Messi recently saying, hey, Argentina hasn't won a trophy since 1993. We're going to take this tournament seriously. For the U.S., I don't remember the last time they won a fairly significant trophy, honestly. You can say what you want about the Gold Cup and other things like that, but this is a big, big trophy against a lot of big, big teams. How important is it for the U.S. to not only get out of the group stage, but also just really finish fairly high in this tournament?
The reality is it's not that important, I think, in the big scheme of things, because we've been dumbed down in terms of our expectations as of recent times. I feel like when we go back to Bruce and we go back to Bob, there were such high expectations placed on those two individuals' shoulders, not just with Project 2010 and winning the World Cup,
yep.
all the MLS hubbub. It was more because I think they were American coaches, and there was this bar that needed to be set. And in comes Jurgen, who at the time was a fantastic addition. He was the complete opposite in terms of Bob, with the way he handled the press, with the way he handled the media. And I always kind of joke around and liken Jurgen to kind of the David Beckham of coaches, where you can ask him a direct question and he's never going to answer it. He's so savvy that he'll actually turn it into some really nonchalant answer that kind of makes sense, but doesn't necessarily make sense.
You hear it in the moment, and you're just like, oh, okay. And then you think about it, like, wait a minute. Like that.
Well, and you have a smile on your face, and you see the smile on his face, and it's fantastic. I've known Jurgen for a long time, and I really do like him as a person. But when it comes to kind of what we've been told with Jurgen Klinsmann, the manager of the U.S. men's national team, is there's a style, there's a substance, there's an identity, and I think there could be a realistic argument made that we're no further along than we were underneath Bob or underneath Bruce in terms of what is our identity, what is our shape. I mean, we get caught up in numbers and formations, and the reality is, yes, we did get through to the quarterfinals of the World Cup, but we were outplayed significantly by Germany. We were definitely outplayed when it came to Belgium. What was it? 18 shots on goal, 19 corner kicks conceded against Belgium.
Incredible.
And I think, now when we got through kind of the final phase of 2015, with everyone calling for Jurgen's job or calling for his head, once we got past that phase and Jurgen was still in charge, I don't see this, I guess to wrap this all around, I don't see this as a tournament that's a make or break for Jurgen Klinsmann. I can't see Jurgen Klinsmann fired on a 3-and-out tournament like this for Copa America. So that's why, for me, expectations are incredibly low, and maybe that's exactly what Jurgen wants heading into a tournament like this.
I appreciate all that honesty, Brian, because I see things exactly the same way that you do. I actually see it as very unfortunate that Sunil Gulati I'll just say it, has allowed this to happen because the precedent he set with firing Bob after taking second in the Gold Cup. It's mind-boggling to those of us who have been fans. I mean, since, I'm near 40 now. I've been a fan since I was 5 years old. Doesn't make sense to me. So, what does have to happen for the U.S. to get this thing? I'm going to say it, to get the ship turned around. I mean, is it a matter of letting Jürgen go, or what is it?
Well, I guess I guess the question then becomes, to follow up your question, is how do we determine turning the ship around? Is it something as easy as just a manager being replaced, which then turns down the trickle effect to the coaches associated with him? He's also basically the technical director, the general manager of the entire system on the inside. So I think there was absolute control and power kind of handed off. And again, I was actually talking about this on Sirius a couple days ago. You go back to the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, and who did we fall in love with on those broadcasts? It wasn't guys like Michael Ballack or Alexi Lawless. We fell in love with Roberto Martinez for his tactics.
Yeah.
And the simplicity in which he got those across. We fell in love with Jürgen Klinsmann because he was honest, yet he wasn't brutal. And so when a guy like Jürgen becomes available, coach of the German national team, coach of Bayern Munich, has played at every level and won at every level in Bundesliga and Serie A and EPL. Well, maybe not with Spurs in the EPL, but he came close. At least he was known for diving and the swan dive at Spurs.
Yep, exactly.
But, I guess the question, I think from the outside looking in, the frustration from the fan base that I always hear conveyed is, well, how are we, what about guys like Sasha Kleshtin? What about guys like Dax McCarty? How's Lee Wynn not being more involved? He's one of the best players in MLS. And you go historically, Jason Kreis wasn't a big guy in the U.S. men's national team. Tyler Twellman didn't have a huge role in the U.S. national team. Jeff Cunningham, Ante Razov, those are all guys that scored over 100 goals in Major League Soccer that didn't see significant U.S. men's national team careers. I think when Jürgen came in, he saw growing up or being in Southern California and watching guys like Brad Evans and Chad Marshall and Robbie Rogers and all these kids coming through the system saying, man, there's this incredibly talented young group of kids that are constantly being churned out. Then what happens to them once they get into high school? Oh, and by the way, you have this inner city population that is insanely talented. You have a Hispanic generation that continues to find themselves down playing for Liga MX in Mexico and getting poached by Mexican teams. How are we not putting this all together? And I don't think there's a clear answer. And I relate that more towards U.S. soccer in general. I don't think we can treat this country the exact same way, meaning that the kids in L.A. are going to get a lot more time on the field than the kids in Salt Lake City.
Sure. That's one thing that I've heard an argument against it, though, too, is that I almost have heard that the United States is just too big at times, and that's allowing a lot of kids to slip through the cracks.
I think we need to, in my eyes, I think you would have to tweak kind of how the approach is for coaching styles, because you're going to have maybe a higher percentage of indoor and futsal, small space, talented type kids in kind of difficult weather areas versus being full field kids being in kind of the southern realm of the United States. Maybe that's why they're implementing more small side at a smaller level. Side note, I can't stand the concussion idea, the heading the ball idea. It just infuriates me. Because I think you're putting kids in a really horrible situation at 13 to start learning how to head the ball in competition as opposed to creating controlled environments for them to learn to head the ball the right way, but that's neither here nor there. Sorry, I got caught in my rambling tangent.
Agreed, though.
The biggest thing, and here's the biggest thing. The biggest thing for me is if Sunil Gulati was going to make the move, who's the right person to turn to? And in my eyes, right now, the only quote-unquote quick fix that we have is Bruce Arena. And much like we saw in Mexico, with Tuca Ferretti taking over for a couple of those games and being a short-term stabilizing force, as Mexico transitioned to their new head coach after getting rid of Piojo. That, for me, is the only short-term fix is Bruce Arena if Sunil was going to make a move. But outside of that, I think now everybody's so gun-shy about bringing in a manager that doesn't necessarily know the mindset of the American player, because there's so many things that come into how we're raised as young players. And I think one big component that's never really talked about enough is you look at the U.S. players and how many of them have significant college education.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of questioning and asking why and having things explained, and not just being and playing with a ton of different coaches, whether they be Dutch or South American or South African or English or even United States. The idea of profe and professor versus manager versus coach. You know, these kids that come through the U.S. system, I was talking about this in Houston with Owen Coyle. They have to be taught. You can't manage players at this level. You actually still have to continue to teach, whether that's technical, tactical, psychological. So I think there's a lot of layers. There's not a right answer, but I'm not sure that, I guess, big picture, that Sunil has found somebody that he felt would be either an upgrade or worth taking that significant slap to the piggy bank, because it's a pretty huge buyout that Sunil is going to have to take. Sure.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, we appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule today. We wish we could talk to you more, but you got to get on with your broadcasting, and we got to roll on with our show as well too. So, Brian Dunseth, thank you so much for taking some time to be here on 2 Up Front today.
Hey, no problem, man. Anytime you guys need me, give me a shout.
Will do, Brian. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Brian.
We're going to run to a break, and when we come back, we've got so much more in store for you here on 2 Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. Don't go anywhere. Back inside the studio for another edition of 2 Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
All right, Simon, we just had a great conversation with Brian Dunseth. Thank you so much, Brian, again, for stopping by the show. And I wish it wouldn't have been so rushed. I felt so bad rushing him, but he had to get off to his radio show. We
Busy
had to get on with the show as well, too. But thrilled to have him on, and he said he wants to come back again, so we will hold him to that, especially with depending on how the U.S. does here in the Copa America, Simon. We are excited to see what happens with that. But we want to take a look now at the Copa America. You can go and predict your very own, what you think is going to happen in the Copa America. Simon and I have done so, and Simon was toying with me before the show, saying, you're going to like what I did, or maybe you won't. And I, on the same side, some folks might be happy or not. So we have our entire predictions here for the entire tournament pretty much done. So why don't we take a look a little bit about it, unless there was anything else you wanted to make mention of fast, Simon?
No, the only thing I wanted to talk about is ticket sales. Disappointing.
Disappointing in the fact of what, though? Because they're insanely expensive.
They are
for some games.
They are expensive. Disappointing that a team like Brazil, for example, they're not bringing all their top guns. Now, you got Uruguay, who is. You've got Argentina, who is gunning to win this thing. Mm-hmm. They're bringing everybody, and everybody's hungry to win. But just for the fact that they're simply not selling. Now, part of that, Baxter, is something that you actually had mentioned to me, or it could be part of it, in that Copa America is going to be a little unconventional. Mm-hmm. Come the quarterfinals.
Yes, that's a very interesting thing that's happening this season that I am 100% behind. They are eliminating extra time in the quarterfinals and the semifinals, and they are going right to penalty kicks if the game is tied, which I think is brilliant.
Really? Why?
Because sometimes with the extra time, you don't, after that 90-plus minutes of time, at that point, a lot of the teams are just like, we just want to move on. We're either done or we're not. Let's just move on, and it gives the opportunity too for some players to be a little bit. Not necessarily healthier and a little bit more energized for something as high pressure as a penalty kick situation. You look at those, after 120 minutes worth of play, penalty kick shootouts, those guys are tired. They don't know what's going on. They're making mistakes they may have not normally be making. And it gives teams, I think, an opportunity to really just move on and maybe to engage watchers a little bit more too, knowing, say, hey, I have to sit through another 30 minutes of this, or no, we're just going right to penalties. Oh, great. Yeah. I'm going to watch this. Fantastic.
So to me, there's two things that could happen. Obviously, there's more, but there's two obvious things for me that could happen.
Sure.
It's going to lead to either a very exciting 90 minutes or an even more boring 90 minutes than there would have been of 30 minutes. Because you may have a team who realizes, you know what, we're not as good as these guys, but we defend well. So let's just sit back the whole game and get this into penalties.
Park the bus.
You know? Or it'll be the opposite effect of, hey, these guys are great in penalties. We got to make sure we win this game.
Exactly.
I hope it's
penalty kicks are such a game of chance too, at the end of the day. But there is skill obviously that goes into it too, and we've seen tremendous goalkeeper saves and random shots off the bar and slipping and all that stuff. So it happens. But I do like those two variations that you have, because if you get a lower level team like a Paraguay or a Peru or whoever that happened to get through that maybe aren't as if they're matched up against an Argentina or a Colombia and they're like, hey, if we get up, or if we just pack the box and just say, let's just get to penalty kicks, anything could happen at that point, because it's all about the player and the goalie at that point. You don't have nobody else in front of you to try to stop you.
Yeah. Or you see, how the U.S. played like against Germany in the 2014 World Cup. They just stayed back the entire time playing for that point.
Yeah.
It's Klinsmann,
you can't really fault that goal from Thomas Muller, though.
Oh, no.
I mean, that one-touch bending finish to the far post.
No, I wanted to see more of that proactive soccer that Klinsmann said we were going to see that we didn't.
Exactly. But we digress.
We digress.
So let's start with Group A here, Simon, with our predictions. USA, Colombia, Costa Rica, Paraguay. I have Colombia winning all 3 of their games, finishing the group with 9 points. I have the U.S. getting out of the group only with 4 points. I have them beating Costa Rica, and I have them drawing Paraguay.
Well, Baxter, I think people might be upset with me, but I got Colombia with 7 points. Okay. Costa Rica, they're kind of flying under the radar. That's what we saw happen at 2014 World Cup, and look how far they went. So I've got actually Costa Rica finishing second with 5 points.
So where's the U.S.?
The U.S. I've got finishing third with 2 points, and Paraguay with a single point.
So the U.S. doesn't get out of the group, is what you're telling me?
U.S. does not get out of the group, yes.
Really?
I've got them losing to Colombia. I've got them drawing with Costa Rica.
Wow.
And then drawing with Paraguay.
Holy cow.
But I'm unconventional with my predictions.
You are. I mean, obviously, it's kind of like we are with our MLS predictions. Sometimes we pick against the Timbers, we pick against the Revs, even though, obviously, we're not going to be mad if the U.S. get out, and we're going to go farther, obviously. But at the same time, you're trying to think logically a little bit, and a little unconventionally, as you're so notorious for doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, it's a backhanded compliment. I love you. It's all right. Group B, we've got Haiti, Peru, Brazil, and Ecuador. For me, Haiti, I love you guys. Fun fact, most of their players play in Europe. I didn't know this.
Yes.
I did not know this.
With a few MLS players in there.
That's not going to be good enough. They're not going to get a single point in my prediction, honestly. Peru is going to surprise everybody, and they're going to win the group with 7 points. Wow. Brazil's going to get 5 points, and Ecuador is going to be that little pesky cousin that's going to keep poking people, but just miss out at the last minute, and they're going to get 4 points. Peru and Brazil advance. Ecuador
has not looked good in their friendlies, but those are friendlies. They are near the top in their World Cup qualifying in CONMEBOL. So I actually have Ecuador going undefeated in this group, Baxter.
Really?
I think they are going to beat Brazil.
Wow. Okay.
Simply because Brazil was one of those teams that you just don't see them caring much about this tournament. To them, it's an off year, and it's cool, but whatever.
Interesting.
I do have Haiti getting 3 points, and actually have Peru sitting at 0 points.
Wow.
I don't think they'll win a game.
Peru finished in the top 4 last year, though, in this tournament. And arguments have been made against them saying that they're going to be even better this year.
I realize that, but can't base everything off of World Cup qualifying, but they're sitting in 8th place. They're sitting on the outside.
Something to keep an eye on. You never know. And this Brazil fact, too, some folks are probably sitting at home saying, well, what are you guys hating on Brazil for? Have you looked at the squad Brazil is bringing? They're missing almost all of their really big stars.
Yet they have something like 5,000 players playing around the world.
Yeah.
Brazilian players.
And this is the best roster that they could put together.
Well, no, what I'm saying is a C team, Brazil team is still going to be a pretty darn good team.
And that's why I have them getting 5 points. I just think that Peru and Ecuador are going to punch the heck out of Brazil and knock them down a little bit, but they're still going to get out at some point.
I am interested to see, Dunga keeps taking them further and further away from their tiki-taki. We'll see how it ends up.
It's a different breed of players now, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing to keep an eye on. Although Kaká will be there, so great for him. He got a last-minute call-up due to some injuries. And he's, I feel, one of the last of those tiki-taka generation with Ronaldinho and Ronaldo and all those.
Bring them back!
Yeah, why not? They'd probably still be really good, honestly. All right, Group C, which is by far the most interesting group, in my opinion. Jamaica, Venezuela, Mexico, and Uruguay. I have Mexico winning all 3 of their games.
I do as well. It's the one thing we agree on so far. Yes.
I really, really want Jamaica to do well.
Well,
I said this for the Gold Cup as well.
Yes. Baxter, we have not talked about this at all before the show. Everything is identical for us in this group.
Oh, look at that.
Mexico 9 points, Uruguay 6 points, Jamaica 3, Venezuela 0.
Venezuela, thank you for showing up,
Yeah.
But
go play some baseball.
Exactly. You picked the wrong group to show up to Copa America, and honestly. Uruguay, they're going to get 6 points, as you mentioned. I think that Mexico-Uruguay game is going to be really, really fun. But Mexico, the roster that they're bringing this season is really, really good.
Yeah, even without Dos Santos. But Uruguay as well.
Yeah, exactly. They're bringing Suarez. They're bringing all their big guns.
I actually won't be surprised if we see that Mexico-Uruguay game end in a draw. But these are basically all home games for Mexico all the way through.
Every single game is going to be packed for them. And finally, Group D, Panama, Bolivia, Argentina, and Chile. We saw what Chile could do at the 2014 World Cup. Really, that surprised. Chile was really, really good. Same with Costa Rica, too. They were, those silent giants that really stepped out and really made a big name for themselves. Bolivia, I've heard good things about Bolivia, but at the same accord, not nearly as good as I feel like other teams in their group. Panama, we know they can be pesky sometimes in CONCACAF, but once again, not really worried about them. Argentina, they're going to have no problem. They're going to run through this group. They are bringing everybody with them. They're bringing Messi. They're bringing Sanchez. They're bringing it's a laundry list of guys that they're bringing, honestly. They're going to win the entire group with 9 points.
Yep, I got the same thing. I got Chile sitting in second with 6 points. I think you do as well.
I do.
The difference for us is that I have Panama beating Bolivia.
Okay.
Because I still think Panama is one of those teams that is just on the border.
Okay.
Just on the border of actually being a CONCACAF team that...
Interesting.
That could be in those top 3 or 4 arguably every year.
Huh.
So now things change for us as we move on to the quarters.
Quarterfinals is where it gets interesting. In my bracket, I have Colombia playing Brazil. I have Argentina, Uruguay, USA, Peru, and I have Mexico, Chile in mine.
So almost everything, I've got the same ones except I have Ecuador and Costa Rica instead of Peru and USA.
Okay. There you go. So for me, I have Colombia beating Brazil.
Me too.
Colombia is just way too good. James Rodriguez. And just, there's a lot of really good talent for Colombia, and I expect them to make a really, really deep run in this tournament.
Now, what's interesting, the last time there was a big tournament like this in the U.S. was 94. And that's when Brazil made it all the way to the final, ended up winning in a shootout after Roberto Baggio from Italy, one of the best players at the time, sent the ball over the crossbar. Anyways, it's being the old man there
Italy.
again.
Love it. Argentina, Uruguay, why not do it again? People really enjoy these games. A couple of teammates going at it as well. Argentina is going to win this game.
Yep, that's what I have.
Peru, USA. Now, this is interesting. Folks are going to be looking at the USA. This is a big if. If the USA gets through, I may have given the U.S. a fairly easy path here moving forward. I have the USA beating Peru in this one, and we'll get to my next one in a moment.
If that happens, I do think the U.S. will beat Peru. But if
it's a USA-Peru in the quarterfinals, you're saying that's the only way, because if Brazil finishes higher than whoever else in their group, if the U.S. get out of their group in second, they would have to play Brazil, which originally was there, but then I switched things around a little bit.
Gotcha.
And that's how Peru ended up with the USA.
Well, it is interesting how the schedule worked out, that basically a lot of these CONCACAF teams would end up in group the second half of the bracket, in which you would have almost a guaranteed CONCACAF team in the semifinals, right?
Exactly. There really is no other way around that.
Right. So I have Costa Rica beating Ecuador.
Oh, okay.
That
makes sense.
I think Costa Rica is going to surprise people in this tournament. And then Mexico beating Chile in the other quarterfinal.
Same for me. So then, for those of you keeping track at home, that means it's Colombia, Argentina in the semifinals in my bracket, and USA versus Mexico as well in my semifinals.
I got the same first semifinal. The second semifinal would be nearly identical, but it's Costa Rica and Mexico.
So I have Argentina again. They're just the better team. Like I said, they've brought just everybody. Argentina clear all the way through to the final. The USA-Mexico game, Mexico has the better roster. They do. We know this. It's that rivalry, though. It's a different game. And this could be, if this was USA, anybody else, I would say they're done. They're going to lose. No chance in hell. But because it's USA-Mexico, there's something about
psychological.
That game. Exactly. There's something about that game.
Does it end 2-0?
That would be beautiful if it did, because, it's a home game kind of for both teams, honestly, especially in the U.S. with Mexico. But USA, they get the victory, barely, but they get the victory, and they move on to take on Argentina in the final.
I do have Mexico beating Costa Rica, so my final ends up being Argentina-Mexico.
And then
you have Argentina-USA.
I have Argentina-USA. USA fans, get excited if you want to. Oh, we made it to the final. No, you're going to get just completely boat raced by Argentina in the final. There's no chance in hell. I'm sorry. Argentina wins the whole tournament. Mexico beats Colombia in the third place game.
Here's what's interesting. If the U.S. makes it that far, I think they actually beat Argentina.
What?
I think they surprise a lot of people, and they beat Argentina.
Really don't think so.
Confederation.
On what grounds?
Well, again, Confederations Cup that we saw a few years ago, they were up 2-0 on Brazil.
Sure.
And they should have won that.
They should have.
Another one of those close calls for Bob Bradley.
True.
And Landon Donovan and company.
So bad.
Kind of foreshadowing what I'm going to choose here. I actually think Mexico wins this whole thing, Baxter.
Interesting.
I think these basically being home games for Mexico, a roster that is stacked. Argentina having a history lately. Obviously, the loss to Germany in the last World Cup final. Messi wants a trophy. I almost think that's going to work against them.
Ooh.
Wanting it so bad that they lose focus on that one specific game.
Okay.
So I've got Mexico winning the entire Copa America.
Interesting. Well, let us know your thoughts about our brackets. For those of you that I'm Facebook friends with and on Twitter as well, I sent my bracket out via that this week. You can check it out. Simon will do the same. Compare, contrast, make fun of us if you want to. Agree, disagree. We'd love to hear from you at 2UpFrontSoccer, at Baxter Colburn, at Simon Provan. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to chat briefly about what happened this week in NWSL, and then on the phone will be Lydia Williams of the Houston Dash to join us as well. You're listening to 2 Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. Back here on another edition of 2 Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. I'm Baxter Colburn.
This is Simon Provan.
All right, Simon, let's take a gander at what happened this last weekend in NWSL action before we are joined in just a few minutes here by Lydia Williams of the Houston Dash and Australian national team. Some interesting games. Some teams found their scoring feet or foots or head or however the balls went in. They figured it out for a couple teams. And one game postponed as well. But let's take a look back at what happened. Thursday, we'll briefly talk about it. Seattle Reign played a friendly against the Arsenal Ladies FC. They drew 1-1, which against probably one of the best NWSL teams against probably one of the best Europeans.
Sure.
A fair result, I suppose.
Sure.
Why not? That's all we really need to say about it. Moving on about that one now that we talked about the scoring. It was crazy. Western New York Flash, a week after the Boston Breakers got that finally their first 1-0 victory against FC Kansas City, they get blown out of the stadium. Blown out. 4-0.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Lynn Williams with a brace on the day. A minute apart were her goals, 64th, 65th minute. Of course, it did finish with the penalty kick that happened there, and obviously in the box. Where else would it happen, right? Yeah. But yeah, what a thrashing Western New York put on, especially
which is
again
good for
in
them,
the
though.
second
that
half.
really helps them because they've been a quiet team this year. I mean, they're still 6th place right now. They're 4-3. They've got 12 points, but they've scored 12 total goals on the year.
But first place is only at 14 points, which is the Chicago Red Stars. So being in 5th place at 12 points, or being in 5th place in a league of 10 teams doesn't sound great. But then when you look at it and go, oh wait, they're only 2 points off the top.
They're a winner. Yeah, they're a winner. Because you look at it's 14, 13, 13, 12, 12. That's the top 5 teams right there. There is so much room for anybody to really take it at any point this year. Chicago just has gotten fortunate. They've only lost 1 game this year. They've got 2 draws.
Well, and of course with that canceled game as well, Washington's sitting on 6 games, so they've got a game in hand with 13 points.
Yes, the Washington Spirit and Houston Dash had a thunderstorm that postponed the game. If anybody was following the game on Twitter at all, the teams were really having a fun time with it. I think they were saying it was like the Washington Wave Riders against the Houston Splash or something like that. They were having a good time with it, and there was even videos too from the teams in the hotels training. They're like, well, we don't have a game, but we got to train, so they were doing different warm-ups in the halls of the hotel. It was kind of funny to watch between the Houston Spirit and Houston Dash Twitter feeds. FC Kansas City, they got a win.
They did get a win
against a really good team too.
Yeah, what's interesting about this is because of the international college for the women's team, they had 2 players in the back who have not played before. So talk about taking advantage of an opportunity.
And they did. They needed to. FC Kansas City, they don't even care if it would have been a U10 team. They got a win. That was such a needed win for them. That first goal from Yael Averbuch took a ricochet. She got fortunate about that one. Goal's a goal, though, at the end of the day.
Hey, as many coaches say, you create your own luck in soccer. That's exactly
we'll
what happened.
We'll talk about that Drogba goal in a little bit here with the LA Galaxy. Holy cow. So the FC Kansas City, they get a much-needed victory. They move up to 9th place now. Move up to 9th place with 5 total points on the year. They're at 1-4-2. Still got to see a lot more from them, honestly. I don't know what is going on with them. We'll hopefully see some change from them. And then Sunday saw a pair of draws between the Red Stars and Sky Blue FC, and the Portland Thorns and Seattle both drew 0-0 again. That's one of those series that I feel like it's either a blowout or there's a draw. Like Portland and Seattle, they match each other well, I feel like.
They do. And so a couple of draws on, as you said, on Sunday, which held Chicago back from taking the top spot in the league, but still, a decent result, 1-1. Pretty even game from what I saw.
No, I completely agree with you on that one. Sky Blue, we've mentioned this a couple times on the program. They're kind of that pesky, quiet giant right now. They're not bad, but they're not really good at the same time, but they've done a good job of kind of hanging in there. They're 2-3-2. They've got 8 points total, 1-2 on the road, 1-2 at home, 1-2 on the road as well. Taking a look at the leaders currently right now in the NWSL, Kristen Press, Diana Matheson, and Joanna Loam, Kim Little, Lindsay Horan, Lynn Williams, and Sam Mewis all have 3 goals, so they're all tied for first place right now. A couple of those gals are gone, though, for international duty, so that might allow others to step in and possibly overtake that as well. Tobin Heath and Crystal Dunn, 5 and 4 assists respectively. Rachel Daly from the Houston Dash, what up, Rach? She's got 3 assists. Kristen Press, she's been peppering opposing teams' goals, 27 total shots, 22 of those on target. That's impressive.
Yes, it doesn't surprise me either that Crystal Dunn is up near the top with assists in the league. I mean, she is such a strong player, especially when she gets out there on the wing wide open and crossing that ball.
Yes, I completely agree with you on that one. There have been 3 red cards this season. Aside from that, Lindsay Horan has got 4 yellow cards. She leads the league with 4 yellow cards. There's 12 other people that have 2 each. A little surprising there, but hey, Lindsay likes to, rough people up, and she's gotten carded 4 times from it. You can't really fault her too much for that. Clean sheet category, Alyssa Nair, she's got 4. Stephanie Leiby has got 4 as well. And then Nicole Barnhart leads the league in saves for Kansas City. That's also because she sees a ton of shots a game as well. So I've always felt like leading in the saves category was either a really good thing or a bad thing, because either your team's a really good team and you just have made good saves at times, or your team is really bad and you see a ton of shots all the time. So we have now on the phone with us the Houston Dash goalkeeper and Australian international, Lydia Williams. Lydia, welcome to 2 Up Front.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome, Lydia. We are excited to have you here on the program. So many different things that we are excited to talk to you about. First and foremost, the Dash right now this season, you guys have been a little bit all over the place. You had some great success early on, and then recently you guys have been struggling a little bit too. Can you kind of shed a little bit of light about what's been going on with the team so far? You guys, you lost Carly Lloyd, but aside from that, you've got a fairly strong and healthy team right now from what we've understood.
Yeah, I think obviously we started the season really well, and a really good idea in mind, and we still have those ideas and we've been working on it. But obviously, it's a season that's very long, so you're going to have a lot of ups and downs. So I think right now we're trying to get settled in a way that we want to play, and everyone understands how their role is going to be affected on the park. So hopefully this weekend we'll get a little bit more understanding and have a good result.
With some of the things that we've noticed throughout the season so far, Lydia, you guys have a lot of firepower, honestly. Looking through your roster, you look at, even from the young folks all the way up to even some of your veterans as well, too. You've got, incredible players like Ohai, O'Sullivan, Carly Lloyd when she was healthy, Melissa Henderson, Rachel Daly, Ellie Brush, Andressa. You could go on and on and on about so many of these talented gals. How does that help even from a practice perspective? Because you're the one that has to probably face most of these shots in practice on a daily basis. How does getting a chance to work against some of these ladies in practice help you become a better goalkeeper?
Obviously I think the key to goalkeeping is consistency. And as long as, the strikers are doing their job and the midfielders in getting, shots on target, that, helps my, consistency and, my play. So, it's actually good every session to kind of get a bit of a workout and a bit of a sweat up and work on the things that I need to do, not only for the Dash, but also, for the national team as well.
Speaking of the national team, you've had a distinct opportunity to represent Australia. You were the goalkeeper for the 2015 Women's World Cup. Australia was certainly, I feel like, a dark horse team for a lot of folks. A lot of folks were really pulling for you. I know personally I was really excited about everything that you as a team were doing. I understand you probably didn't finish the tournament how you guys had hoped, but from what you saw, from what you witnessed from your teammates and how you feel like you played too, was the result that you ended up with a fair assessment of where your team was at the moment?
Yeah, I think, right from the start when we were leading into preparations, we always had, a quiet confidence about us. And, every meeting we wanted to be a medal champ. I wanted to go out at every training session, every game that we played leading up to Canada, with that thought in mind. And I think we surprised a lot of people around the world. And so, yeah, right now, we had a little bit of a rebuilding phase after that to qualify for the Olympics. We'll go back home in a couple of days' time, and that's kind of our final, I guess, camp.
Speaking of the Olympics, Lydia, this is Simon talking to you. You guys have a tough group down in Rio, Canada and Germany especially in there. You do have Zimbabwe. What do you think your chances are of advancing? Of course, in the Olympics, some of the high third-place teams do advance as well. But what are your chances of getting out of this almost a group of death looking at women's soccer here?
Obviously we got put in a group of death in Canada. So, for us to be, up against the odds, I think that kind of suits us. I think Australia as a nation likes to be the dark horse and prove people wrong.
Yeah.
So, I think, for us it just builds our motivation and our confidence. Obviously we have to make sure that, physically and mentally we're in the right headspace to go into these games, and the importance of not getting too wrapped up in the hype of being at the Olympics. But, I think, the girls matured a lot during Canada and last year. So I think, definitely have the right mindset in mind.
I think one of the things that's brutal is the schedule, Lydia. You've got 3 days between each games down in the Olympics, August 3rd, August 6th, August 9th. How do you handle such a tight schedule like that?
Well, obviously, I think our medical staff's going to be working overtime.
Yep.
But yeah, leading into our Olympic qualifiers when in Japan, we played every second day. So we're not foreign to, playing, with only a rest, 1 day rest or 2 days rest. So for us, I think it's something that we've been through quite recently. So yeah, our medical staff will definitely be, midnight working and making sure that all our bodies are okay to perform the next day.
From a perspective here, Lydia, looking at this group, still talking with Lydia Williams here of the Houston Dash and also of the Australian women's national team. Looking at this group, all three teams that you're playing really are completely different. Canada plays a very unique style of football compared to how the Germans play. We've heard about the German machine from the men's and the women's side. And then Zimbabwe's kind of a running gun team too. And Australia, I feel like, combats some of what Canada and what Zimbabwe do, but are you guys going to have to try to put a lot more pressure on a team like Germany, who just loves to just kind of play keep away for 90 minutes and then pull up shots every once in a while? Or I feel like that's going to be a little confusing and a little difficult, at least from a goalkeeper's perspective, too, of trying to organize your back line accordingly to deal with so many different barrages of attacks. Yeah,
I think obviously we have quite an extensive staff that help out, how we want to play, and, video sessions and meetings to try and get the way that we're going to combat each team on the day. But I think, obviously Germany, they are a powerhouse. They're fit, they're strong, and they've been in the top, 2 in the world for quite some time. So it's definitely going to be difficult, but we're not going to be sitting back. We want to get a result out of that game. So I think that's going to be quite an exciting matchup for the tournament.
Lydia, switching gears here. When we had Ellie on the show, I had done a little bit of research, and I got to bring up some bad stuff here. Canberra United, you guys came close to making it to the W League final down there in Australia, but there was some controversy, you could say, in that semifinal game. I don't want you to get any fines, mind you, but
or be mad at us, because we're on your side. We're on your and Ellie's side. We've seen the video 100 times, and we are just as upset. But being there, living in that moment, can you take us through that?
Well, okay. Obviously, I think, I got a yellow card for my effort for trying to argue with the ref. So
a valiant effort.
That's the first time that's ever happened. So to say that I was pretty livid is probably an understatement. But yeah, no, the ball went up in the air, kind of like a cross, and as I tried to get up for it, my arm got hooked underneath the opposition striker. Mm-hmm. So as I'm trying to jump for it, I'm pretty much, trying to jump with an arm being pulled down. So basically, I couldn't really challenge for the ball. It kind of got hit, one of our players and kind of bounced out for, Jazz Spencer to just slot it in. So, it was pretty funny at the time, looking back at it, that, we had five referees around the field, but I guess wow. That's sports sometimes. You can't take it back. So yeah, it's not the best thing, but at least it wasn't a World Cup. I think that would have been.
That's true. That is a whole.
I probably would have got a red card or something.
Well, and another question that I asked Ellie, because obviously a lot of NWSL players go and play in the Australian W League. What do you see are some of the differences between the two?
A new league or anything, but I think the way that it's developing is quite new. We're getting more funding and getting more backing from the men's teams, and more, I guess, media and people coming out to watch, which is really exciting. But it's definitely a league that really focuses on like the technical aspect and trying to play football in the way that girls can break into our national team. So. On that aspect, I think it's always good to have a holiday in Australia during summer. So I think that's the main thing that draws international players in. Gotcha.
What I got to ask you, when's the last time you've had a break? Because just looking at your career here, you've been around. You've been with the Red Stars, the Washington Spirit, Western New York Flash. But again, we also see how many years you've spent in the W League. Do you get a chance to take a break?
Well, what do you define as a break? A holiday or like no football for like 2 weeks? That's pretty much.
Well, I guess maybe the better question is, what do you define as a break then maybe?
My break probably would be a holiday. Actually traveling somewhere and not being around any kind of football, but I haven't had that in a really long time. I think maybe 3 or 4 years.
Wow. So you're due, is what you're telling us. Then you're due for a little bit of a break. Then.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. After Brazil, we'll see what happens.
Maybe stay down there for a little extra while, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Be like, sorry guys, I got separated from the team. I'm just gonna have to spend some time down here, and I'll catch you back up to Houston at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that will fly, but we'll see what happens.
Exactly. Well, switching back gears here for a moment, Lydia, back to Houston. A couple of these upcoming games are against some fairly talented teams as well. I'm assuming you said you don't fly out until this weekend, so you will be a part of the game. You guys take on the Washington Spirit, and then you guys have the Seattle Reign, FC Kansas City as well, too, and even the Orlando Pride. That's kind of a bit of a grueling schedule, at least in terms of how the NWSL League has done such a great job so far this season. Preparing for teams like that with such firepower, going up against strikers like Kim Little and Alex Morgan, how do you, as a team right now, kind of bounce back from this? You could call it a little bit of a slump, unfortunately. I mean, obviously, as we mentioned, you guys started off fairly well with that 3-1 victory, and you had some great rookies like Rachel Daly and Becky as well jump on the scene. But I feel like something is just missing from these games that I've had the opportunity to watch, and I've watched every single game this season too. But I just feel like there's something that's like a disconnect or something between some of the players that's going on, or I don't know. Can you shed a little bit of light about what you're seeing on the field?
I think the key for every footballer and to get results out of the game is consistency, and I think we're just trying to find that at the moment. But in saying that, the games have been quite close. It's not like we haven't created chances. It's been pretty even possession and gameplay as well. So, I just think it's something that, we're developing along the way. Obviously you want to kind of develop it a little bit faster, but, we're getting there. We're playing really good football at training and combinations in the park, and we have some fantastic players in, every position. So, I think, we've had a few meetings this week to try and get the team together and, really, go out this week and try and get the result. So I think, we're nearly there, but not just quite. So it'll be interesting to see how we perform and, hopefully we get the win.
One thing we talked about, too, when we had Rachel Daly on the program a couple of weeks ago is the fact that Houston is hosting the NWSL Championship this year. How much more of added pressure does that put on a team like you that, it's your home venue. That's where you play all of your football. how much more pressure is placed on you guys now, because you want to play in your own backyard if you can, releases the travel, all of that things. But when you found out that announcement, did you as a team kind of get together and say, all right, let's get it together here, let's really try to make a push for it because we want to play in our own backyard?
For me personally, I just try and take every game as it comes. I don't really like to try and dwell too far into the future, because you're not there yet. There's still 12, 15 games to play of the season. So I think majority of the girls are on that same page. It's awesome that the Houston is going to be hosting it, and it's exciting to see the crowd, and hopefully it builds up the interest a little bit more. But I think we're just going to take one game at a time, and hopefully we're in the top 4 come the end of season.
Absolutely. Well, Lydia, we really appreciate you taking some time with us here on Two Up Front. You can catch Lydia Williams in goal for the Houston Dash and for the Australian national team. Go and check out their games if you happen to be in the Australia area, as they take on New Zealand as well, June 4th and June 7th. And if you're down in the Houston or anywhere where the NWSL action takes place. Lydia Williams, thank you so much for taking time today on Two Up Front.
Cheers, thank you.
You are welcome. Lydia. We're going to run to a break. When we come back, we've got more exciting action in store for you. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Two Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. I'm Baxter Colburn. No Simon Provan for this interview. He had to run off and be a parent for a short interview as we are continuing to move on with our show here today. We have a great opportunity now to speak with MLS goalkeeper Trey Mitchell. He is considered a league pool goalkeeper. He finds himself down in the great city of Kansas City, and now he joins us on the phone here on Two Up Front. Trey, good afternoon to you and welcome to the program.
What's up, Max? How are you?
I'm doing well, Trey. Thanks so much for taking some time. Well, I need to ask, I've never heard of this, and maybe this because I don't follow the league as closely as maybe other true diehards. What the heck is a league pool goalkeeper, and how in the world does that somehow translate to you being in Kansas City now?
Basically, a league pool goalkeeper is a goalkeeper that is able to be loaned out to any team in the league that needs an emergency goalkeeper. So let's say, for instance, the DC United, so they have a 5 goalkeeper debacle going on. Let's say if one of their 5 was injured and they had to either re-sign another goalkeeper, or they needed a goalkeeper to play or sit the bench, I would have the capability to go there for them to use me until they have their goalkeeper back to health.
Interesting.
And then I go back to my home.
Do you find that to be more enjoyable as a player, so that you don't have to maybe have consistently, I guess, obviously one season where you're maybe at multiple different teams? Or I'm confused, I guess, on how mentally that's got to be a little bit, because it's like, oh, I'm here today, I might be over there tomorrow. It seems like it'd be kind of fun, honestly.
Yeah, it gets a little interesting. Last year and this year as well, I'm kind of new, and I'm also a new player in the sport and and in the league as well. So I kind of came out of the under the radar from the small D2 school. And I think it was something that was good for me, just being able to have the ability to be loaned out to so many teams. Last year, I was loaned out to, I think, 5 teams. I was loaned out to Orlando, Philadelphia Union, Sporting Kansas City, and then a couple others. And to be able to bounce around all the teams, meeting coaches, seeing how certain locker rooms are ran, seeing how certain coaches coach, and then also giving the opportunity for teams to see me as well, I thought that was very beneficial for me and beneficial for my career.
No kidding,
and it's something that I'm continuing to do. So, yeah, just going to keep working.
It's one of those things, too, where you kind of get an opportunity to almost have a season-long audition at multiple teams at times, too, because you can kind of show everybody.
Exactly.
I mean, and even when the off-season rolls around, too, the teams can pull up their team sheets and be like, hey, we had that guy Trey in for a while. He was pretty good. Why don't we call him in or sign him up a little bit? So it kind of benefits you at the same time, if I'm understanding.
Exactly. And if you look at it in the standpoint of where actually Tim Milia, who's our number 1 here at Sporting,
sure.
He was the pool goalkeeper, I would want to say, 2014 season.
Okay.
And look at his success story.
Yeah, exactly. So if it happened,
comeback player of the year and just doing so well right now. So yeah, that's pretty much something that I've had in my mind.
Exactly. Well, right now you are with Sporting Kansas City, as you mentioned. I'm curious to know a little bit about what you've, as a player, been able to kind of take away from how the season has been so far, because it's been kind of an up-and-down season for Sporting Kansas City. They started off really hot, and then, unfortunately, they can't really seem to buy a win recently. I mean, they did just get a victory recently against Orlando. They got a 2-1 victory. But aside from that, though, from somebody that's been a part of the organization, that's really been there day in and day out, what have you noticed about the team so far, and can you diagnose maybe a possible problem? Is it people being injured? Is it a chemistry issue? What's going on?
I don't necessarily think there's any crazy issues. I just think that necessarily the team is just kind of going through a little slump right now, and it's just not going their way. I feel like they've put together some really good performances, such as Orlando. If you go and look at the Orlando game, where they had almost, I think, 40 shots on goal, 40 shots in the entire game.
Yeah.
They were just playing beautiful soccer. I think that was something that shows that when this team gets everything going their way, they're just going to freaking slide down the hill, and there's nothing going to be able to stop them.
No kidding.
I think right now, I just think right now it's just a little slump in the team, and sooner or later, once they catch their fire back again, I don't think there's going to be much stopping them. They're a very strong team. Everybody in the locker room is awesome. The coaching staff is very strong. They have a full belief system in the players, and I think that just when they get their break in a game, in the next game that they have, hopefully against DC, I think they're just going to be stoppable. Once they catch fire, though, Baxter, it's going to be a pretty dangerous team.
No kidding. And I was going to say, you look at this roster, too, even on paper, this is probably one of the best MLS teams, as we mentioned, at least on paper right now. But you get the opportunity as a player to work with guys like internationals like Matt Beasler, and you get guys like Dom Dwyer, Graham Zusi, Benny Fellhopper. How does that help you as a player get to advance in your skill set by having such potentially world-class players working with and against you in practice?
Going in the locker room every day, seeing the leadership that a guy like Beasler or Benny Fellhopper, Zusi, or even some of the players that aren't the biggest names, such as Kevin Ellis or Jake Peterson. Seeing all these guys work and seeing the way that this team works as a team and is not very individualized, and everybody has a voice, whether it's from the staff or from the players. It's very, I would say it's a breath of fresh air. From what I've seen in the league and being in other teams. To me, this is a real team here. And it's a team that when they're going down, they're going to go down all together. And then when they're on their high, they're going to be on their high together. And I think that, yes, you're 100% right. I've been learning so much from these high caliber players, having to go up against Graham and going up against Benny and dealing with their shots, and then also being able to communicate with Matt in the back line and learning so much from his position and how I have to stay connected to my line, and picking his brain a little bit through all that stuff. It is absolutely amazing. But something that I think is so important also through the Kansas City organization is that, yes, they have those huge high-name players, but they also give so much faith and so much trust in as I guess you could say, lower players, or just not that big of a name player,
sure, yep.
Who is such as Jimmy Madronda. You look at Jimmy and how well he's been doing, and he just caught fire, and they just give it to him and let him go.
Exactly.
I think that's something that I really, really like, and I think that that's something that the entire Sporting Kansas City coaching staff is very good at, and something that I was attracted to when I was last year, when I was with them for the month last year, and it was something that I was so hungry to get myself back out here and be a part of it.
Do you know if there's an opportunity for you to stay long-term at all in Sporting at all, or is there still...
I think that's always an opportunity, and that's something that is going to have to be crossed, or that's the bridge that has to be crossed when we get there. But for right now, no matter where I am, so as of right now, I'm here with Sporting. I'm going to give my 100% all to make sure I stay here for the next year. And whether it happens, whether it doesn't, I don't know. It's in God's hands, in my mind. And all I could do is just go out there and do my best every single day. And if Sporting wants to have me back for their next season and be where I'm on their team, then absolutely, I would love that opportunity. Or if it's another team, I don't know. But yeah, my mindset is to continue to work hard, continue to push myself, and continue to turn heads in whatever coaching staff I'm a part of, and give it my all to whatever badge I'm wearing. And if they want me to stay, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be ready to stay.
Talking with Trey Mitchell here on Two Up Front, a league pool goalkeeper currently residing with Sporting Kansas City in Major League Soccer. Trey, stepping away from the soccer field for a little bit, I'm sure you got to do a lot of different things outside of the field that take up some of your free time. How does a guy like you who does do all this different kinds of traveling and even being a goalkeeper, so how do you relax? What does Trey do when he's not busy, saving balls from Dom Dwyer?
That's something that I'm definitely going to have to use to now that I just came from California. I've been a California boy my entire life.
Sure.
So, I'm so used to being on the beach every day after training and being able to go out and surf and hang out with all my friends on the beach and all my teammates from LA on the beach. So right now it's kind of a little bit of a culture shock being, I think our closest beach here is 14 hours away. So that's a little bit of a culture shock for me. But, I really enjoy, spending time out here, and it's a really beautiful downtown city. They have a lot to offer here. There's good little restaurants and places downtown. I also love going to golf. I also played golf in college, so I'm a dual sport, and I'll go play golf as much as possible. I just had some family out here as well as my girlfriend came out and visited, and was able to spend time with her and all that stuff. So, yeah, just trying to keep myself busy, and then also on the side I do a little bit of coaching as well. Help get my resume going up a little bit as well when I have to hang the boots up. And, just definitely trying to stay busy as much as possible.
And that's certainly a good segue, too, you're still very, very young. You're only 24 last time I checked. Is that correct?
Just turned 25 last month.
You did? Okay, well, happy birthday to you on that one. But you've still got, from a professional playing career, you still have a good 5, 10, maybe even 15 years if you keep yourself in top shape.
And as a goalkeeper, I'd like to think I'm a little child right now. So, yeah.
I was going to say, from a goalkeeper's perspective, you guys don't take as many hits as some of those, field players or even defenders do on a daily basis. You're probably going to outlast Dom Dwyer and other guys on the team in terms of playing career-wise. But you did mention that, possibly coaching, doing other things like that. Is that something you do have your eyes set on for retirement once that fateful day does come around?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I also think that I'm a long ways away from that, but yes, I'm definitely very hungry to possibly have the opportunity down the line to be a coach. I come from a very long line of coaches in my family, which is not from soccer; it's actually from football.
Oh, okay.
So I do have a long line of coaching in my blood, and I think I have a knack for it and have a niche for it, and think I would be very good at it.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Trey, we appreciate you taking some time today on the program. We look forward to following the rest of your career as well, too. Right now, you can find Trey Mitchell at Sporting Kansas City as a league pool goalkeeper. Hopefully one day we'll see Trey officially starting between the pipes for one team full-time. But for right now, go and check him out at a Sporting Kansas City game if you can. Trey, thanks so much for taking some time today. We appreciate it.
Yep, thanks, Baxter.
You are very welcome. All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, more in store for you here on Two Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front. We're having a party. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Prove, and a pool party.
Woo! A pool party. Wait a minute. Is that because we just talked to Trey Mitchell, the league pool goalkeeper?
No, actually, it's kind of cool if you think about it, Baxter, that you're basically being signed by the league and then loaned out to other teams. You get to experience all these different teams. You get to experience different environments, different coaches, and maybe get picked up. Obviously, the ultimate goal is to get hooked up to one team. But
exactly, and that's what Trey was telling us too. He was like, and I asked him, are we going to see you long term in Sporting? And he's like, I hope so. He's like, but at the same time, he's like, hey, wherever I'm needed, I'm happy to go wherever I need to go.
I just wonder, how quickly do those guys dry off when they're sitting there in the league pool coming out?
Well, he was in LA for a while, and now he's in. It's not as warm in Sporting, so he's probably still a little damp.
That's right, yes.
Gosh. Anyways, switching over, we've had a great opportunity. It's been a goalkeeper-full show today. We talked to Lydia Williams a couple segments ago from the Houston Dash and Australian women's national team. We just dove into Trey Mitchell and his career a little bit. And now,
that was good. That was good.
Thank you. And now we're going to move into MLS in a more official capacity, league that we are very big fans of. You with your Portland Timbers, me with my New England Revolution, and now we get an opportunity to head to the East Coast, to the District of Columbia, to the hallowed halls of DC United. And now we get a chance to speak with goalkeeper Andrew Dykstra of DC United here on Two Up Front. Andrew, good afternoon and welcome to Two Up Front.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Well, you are welcome. Andrew, we got to ask immediately, how are you doing with the injury? How's recovery going? Are you feeling any better? Are we going to see you on the field anytime soon?
Yeah, injury's coming along. It was pretty unfortunate timing, when Hamid had taken on his injury. But we were in LA, slipped a disc in my back, and didn't really set in until the 5-hour plane ride, which doesn't help anybody with a back issue.
No, not at all.
So got it taken care of. The surgeons are pretty optimistic about my return. They think still got a couple more weeks of trying to get the strength and speed back and all that stuff. But probably a couple more weeks. In terms of play time and all that, that's kind of up to Benny. So we'll kind of cross that bridge once we get to that point.
Yeah, you mentioned the unfortunate timing about it too, because Bill had just gone down fairly recently, and then everybody was excited to see what you were capable of doing, and then, as you mentioned, the timing kind of worked the way it did, and it's kind of been, unfortunately, a little bit of the story of your career a little bit, though. You've been back and forth, in and out with different teams and different clubs, even within the league as a whole, too. Is this one of those things where you were just kind of sitting at home thinking about it? You're like, come on, give me one little break here, soccer gods.
Yeah. I mean, if you dwell on it and you keep thinking about it, which I definitely did a couple days before surgery, it drives you absolutely mental. But you got to kind of just put that stuff aside and focus on yourself. And the thing is, I'm not an injury-prone guy. I spent almost my entire professional career without an injury or surgery. Didn't miss a day, and then. There was the Achilles a few years ago that came out of nowhere. Bounced back from that, got game time last year. Things were rolling, and then, this happened again. It was pretty unfortunate, but, like I said, I can't dwell on it, otherwise it just drives me crazy.
Yeah, actually, I look at it as a very positive thing, not that you're injured, Andrew, but, looking over your career, how you were undrafted, but you made your way into the Chicago Fire lineup. Mm-hmm. And eventually made your way as the starting goalkeeper after they waived John Bush. And, we saw you play with Charleston Battery and then find yourself back up in the league again. So how do you keep pushing yourself through? I mean, it's a very positive thing that obviously you continue to play professionally. But, you're in the top league in the U.S. And then, as I said, you go down to USL Pro, but then you find your way back up to MLS. How do you do that as a fighter?
I think a lot of it is just good timing. I know that there's some folks that happens to, where they get bounced out of the league and they kind of, their head gets down or they just settle for where they're at. They just kind of accept what it is. And, for me, I was single at the time, which is great because, I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that.
We understand.
I was dating.
Didn't have any attachments.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't have any. I wasn't married, I should say. I wasn't married.
There you go.
But you have the ability to kind of go where you need to go and do what you need to do. And my girlfriend, Den, who's now my wife, she's kind of like, get it done, and we'll kind of sort it out. Didn't have any kids. And my whole life has been athletics. I did swimming for a short time. I wrestled as a kid. I played football. Could have gone to college to play football as a wide receiver. Stuck with soccer, and I've always been an athlete. To have size, strength, and speed kind of always gives me a great base to push from. Because when you have those things, you can always then you focus on the skills. And when I went to Charleston, it was, I saw it as an opportunity. What can I do here that gets me back to the next level?
Sure,
and,
yep. Which is good to have that mentality, too.
Exactly. I mean, and the same thing was out of college. I came out and no one drafted me. I wasn't invited to the MLS Combine. I went to Europe to do some training just to kind of buy some time to see who might be interested in the States. I was doing it in Germany, and they kind of said to me, they're like, your feet aren't where they should be as a professional goalkeeper. So when I came back to Chicago, every single day after training was kicking with my left foot or, trapping balls or whatever it is. So, those days John Bush was playing my first year, I was working on my feet. So I'm always picking up, the bottom part of my game.
And he's a good guy to learn from too. Yeah,
exactly. And then, the same thing what happened when I went to Charleston. And I looked back and I said, you know what, these are probably things I could improve on or need to improve on. And I did. And then I was kind of lucky enough that in my off season with Charleston, I'm from Woodbridge, Virginia. My agent at the time had kind of said to them, Andrew's around if you need a training partner, and came in and they said, yeah, we want you back next year for a contract. So, worked out.
And it's interesting, the evolution of the goalkeeper. 20, 25 years ago, a goalkeeper with feet was a rarity. But now it's a necessity. 20 years ago, making a back pass to your goalkeeper was a nail-biting adventure in a game. But now, it's, as I said, it's a necessity.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what kind of, if you were to talk to young kids out there about being a goalkeeper and obviously working with your feet, what kind of things could they be doing as a goalkeeper? What kind of, are the exercises different working with goalkeepers' feet versus a field player?
I think so, because I'm very big on specificity. So, if you're a forward and you want to work on your feet, you should work on trapping balls that are, being in-swung, because you're typically going to see crosses. Or you should learn to trap and play with balls with your back to the goal or someone hanging off of you. For me as a goalkeeper, everything is in front of me. So you always see the field. You typically have a little bit more time on the ball than, say a midfielder or defender, stuff like that. So for me, it's kind of like, if you're going to have that time, you better make the right decision with the ball. So I would say to any youth, put yourself in the goal. Have your dad or your teammates or whoever it is hit it back from different angles. Have them challenge you by hitting, bouncers in and learning to trap it, play out the other way, play the same side. Try and mimic as much as you can what you would do in a game.
And I almost got to think that for those dads who actually can't play, who are thinking, I can't take shots on my son, I don't know how to shoot. That's actually the best kind of person to take a shot because they're totally unpredictable.
Go anywhere.
Yeah, no, I get it. I understand. I was there as a youth. My dad was he wrestled in college, so I wasn't getting any training from him.
Well, I have to ask you before we just switch gears here a little bit, Andrew. You were born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I'm a little curious about that to now where we find you in D.C. How in the world did you end up in Honolulu?
Dad is a Marine.
Oh,
he's a retired Marine colonel.
Wow.
So I was born in Hawaii. We lived in Okinawa, Japan for a short time. Went to Norfolk, Virginia, Southern California, and then I went to middle school and high school in Northern Virginia. He was either at Quantico or DC.
Wow. Okay.
Until he retired. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, let me just say that it makes sense where your tenacity comes from, knowing your dad was a Marine. And at the risk of sounding trite, we do thank your father for his service to this country.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Was that something, since your father was so distinguished in the Marines at all, was that something that ever crossed your mind about a possible career path, or were you always hell-bent on wanting to play soccer?
It's funny you say that. When I was younger, I was actually, and I still kind of am, a huge American football fan. And
hey, we're from Wisconsin. We get it.
We're big Packers fans. Don't worry.
Yeah. And it might even sound stranger because my dad's from Grand Rapids, Michigan. So we grew up watching. I grew up watching Barry Sanders on TV. Sure. Michigan football, Michigan State he had on. So I was always fascinated by football, and I always wanted to be, big, strong, fast, be a wide receiver, do all that stuff. And I was lucky to have the ability to do it in high school, but didn't really work out the way soccer would have that I predicted. And I was right, which was good. But Sorry, I got off course.
No, that's all right. Well, I will say it's got to be kind of amazing that. So you grew up in Grand Rapids, watching all this football. I'm sure both Michigan State and Michigan. And who would have thought that 20 years down the road, you're watching Real Madrid and Manchester United play in the big house?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, and I definitely there were people that I grew up with, or I knew in Camp Pendleton when we lived there, or I knew in Norfolk. And when I grow up, they find me on Facebook, and they're like, "Man, I thought you would have been a Marine."
Well, that's a good assumption, though. If they didn't know any better.
Yeah, I know. As a kid too, my dad is huge into American history.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so when we drove across country both times from California and then back, we visited every single battlefield and fort and. So my knowledge base with military history, especially with the U.S., is pretty good. And just having known everything and what I did, everybody says that. They go, I thought you would have been in the Marines. But I don't know. I mean, I was kind of a younger kid that had just a ton of energy. And when I finally told my parents, like, I want to get serious with soccer, they're like, more power to you. It keeps you busy and running out of your energy. And,
sure. They didn't realize the potential that you had at that time. They were just more concerned about you not being as obnoxious at home than as a little kid.
Yeah, pretty much exactly how I went.
Well, it's very...
And then,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, then, a couple of years go by, and I was actually a forward until I was probably about 15 or 16.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of always the athlete on the team, and it kind of transferred nicely into goalkeeping, and it was just kind of like one opportunity fell in your lap after another, and then I just kind of seized it. So I went from just playing kick around to finding a travel team, and then it was like, oh, you're okay at this, and then I made the high school team. You're like, okay, you're all right, and then I said, I found out you could get scholarship money to play soccer. So I said, yeah, let's try it.
Why not? Exactly.
Yeah. Once that worked, I said, I think I have a realistic possibility of playing professionally. And I mean, not everybody, I'm sure there's a lot of great players that just don't have the opportunity or aren't given a chance. Especially in the States, like you got to kind of take a sacrifice, because when I started at Chicago, the old minimum league minimum was it
12.5?
$18,000.
18. Okay.
No, It had just jumped to 18. So I was like the last generation to see the poverty salary.
Yes, literally. Yes,
seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. So
wow.
You kind of gotta, and there's not a lot of people that are willing to do that and to say, what, like, I'm going to make the most of this, and they say, kind of forget about it. And there's other guys that they just don't get the invite, or they don't. I mean, I think every professional athlete, unless you're just an absolute superstar when you're a kid younger, you need a little bit of luck, or you need an opportunity.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah,
well, and
sure.
You even look at baseball players in minor league; they're not making tons of money either.
No.
But your father being a Marine and you being a professional soccer player, I guess it's only fitting that you end up with DC United playing in our nation's capital. And we're talking about we're talking with Andrew Dykstra here on 2 Up Front Soccer. Let's focus in on DC United a little bit. We know you're injured. It's been a rough season so far, though, Andrew. And what are you guys doing to try to right this ship right now?
I don't think that there's a lot of distress in the locker room. People believe in what our abilities are, and fortunately, it's much better. It's leagues ahead of the 2013 season where we had, we only won a couple games.
Sure.
But it is nice to know what a team like that looks like, and then you look at your team now and you go, we had rough times, but we have good strings. We're playing well. You have good players. We got the right people in place. So, I can't speak for the coaching staff as to what changes they want to make, but I can say that they do have the players in the clubhouse to get the job done, and I think that that's kind of what a lot of people are counting on.
Do you think some of the issue maybe with the lack of wins right now has been because it's been kind of a rotating carousel of goalkeepers this year? I mean, goalkeepers at No,
I don't think so. I know. I don't know how that could affect a field player's mentality. I know sometimes if you really have a goalkeeper that you do not trust, I'm sure that can weigh mentally on a group as a whole. But that being said, Travis came in, didn't make any mistakes. He was learning. He did his job. He did well. He came up with a couple saves to keep us in games. And then he just like I had my streaks the past couple of years. He did too. He kind of got acquainted with the group, and they got used to the way he plays, and it worked out. But Bill's heading back within the next couple of weeks, so
which is great. He's a very special player, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I think that probably gives. I would assume that gives some players some motivation. There's just a little bit confidence, and maybe. I mean, I know that they change. There's more changeover in hockey with goalkeepers. With the ups and downs,
sure,
and they kind of change them in and out to spark a group. But this, maybe that could happen with us. I don't know.
Exactly. Hey, that's the beautiful thing about soccer is that anything can happen on any given day.
Exactly.
Well, Andrew, we really appreciate you taking the time today. Andrew Dykstra, the goalkeeper for DC United, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you back out on the field sometime soon. Andrew, good luck with the rest of your recovery, and we'll hope to have you back on the program again in the future.
Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, are welcome. Andrew. We're going to run to a break. When we come back, we've got more in store for you here on 2 Up Front. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to 2 Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. Welcome back inside the studio. 2 Up Front, rolling on. I'm Baxter Colburn.
This is Simon Provan.
Okie doke, Simon. Let's move into more MLS talk there. We just chatted with Andrew Dykstra, goalkeeper of DC United. Great guy. Interesting story, too, about his dad and about him possibly choosing the Marines or the military and everything, too. Really, really nice guy to chat with, and pleasure to have him here on 2 Up Front as well. Special thanks to him and DC United, of course, for making that happen. All right, let's take a look back at the week that was in Major League Soccer. I made it happen. The Revs finally got another victory. They beat the Seattle Sounders 2-1. I'm thrilled by that. Great move by the young guy, Femi. He got the game-winning goal as well, too. So excited for them, and moving up in the standings. Still not in the playoffs right now, but still, you gotta playoffs. We're definitely not talking about the playoffs right now for the Revs. Fun fact, I forgot to mention this. I should have opened the show with this, but I'm going to say this right now. My sweet wife, for our first year anniversary, we just celebrated a couple days ago here.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. She bought us Chicago Fire New England Revolution tickets in October.
Oh, very fun.
Excited.
That's
she
great.
will, however, be like 8.5 months pregnant at that point as well. So she's like, if I'm too big, you're my de facto, you're my second wife if she can't go.
Sounds good.
So, because she's like, I want to go, and she's like, barring any weird complications, she's like, I'm going to be there. She's like, I'm going to be huge. She's like, but I want to go.
Hey, how cool would it be to say, we gave birth to our child at a New England Revolution
This is our
game.
New child, Lee Wynn Colburn, or Diego Fagundes Colburn. You're like, she'd probably say no to that. I think that would be a lot of fun. But yeah, I was so surprised. She was, when I woke up on our anniversary, she's like, you should check your email. I'm like, okay, sure. I checked, and I was like, oh my gosh. She like sat the confirmation sent to me, basically. She's like, guess what? I'm like,
awesome.
My gosh.
Very cool.
Because she got up before me and did all that. And I'm like, look at you.
Ironic that you bring that up now, because I was actually in Chicago this last weekend for the Portland Timbers Chicago Fire game.
How'd that go?
It went.
How was the experience?
The experience was fantastic.
There you go.
It was great. No, it was really great. One of the things I love about this league is that you do have, as bad as the Fire are, I give many props to Section 8, their supporters group.
Yeah.
Very dedicated. I do enjoy their Hauptmann out chants, the owner of the Fire who never shows up to a game.
Love it.
But I went down there, had my Timbers Army gear, and actually got some more Army gear from one of my friends out in Portland.
Hey.
Got some junior scarves for my daughters, so already indoctrinating them.
Well done. Well done.
But no, the Section 8 had invited us to their tailgate party as well, so we were hanging out with them. Great Mexican food, by the way. It was fantastic. And I took my brother-in-law. This was the first MLS game, regular season MLS game he's ever been to.
Okay, that'll be my same too when I go to the Revolution game, unless I happen to get to one before that.
Yeah.
But that's the plan right now.
So Chad, my brother-in-law, lives up in Minnesota, near the Twin Cities. So he's been to Minnesota United versus MLS team games.
but
this
was
his
official.
first actual
Is he going to be a Minnesota United supporter when they?
Well, he already is.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm assuming he will continue to be.
Jump up.
Yes.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah. So the game itself, though, Baxter was bad.
Yeah.
Portland.
1-1 draw.
Portland
How do
really,
you draw a team like Chicago?
And Chicago actually looked like the better team this week.
Really?
Ackham was playing really well up front, making some fantastic runs.
Is he as fun to watch in person as he is on TV?
Yes.
Okay. He just looks like
even
he's
more
so much fun.
Yeah, 'cause he's so fast.
Yeah.
He's got great skill. But Portland was really missing Nagbe. I talked about this on last week's show that I think it's going to affect them a great deal, and it certainly did. They could not work that ball up the front. And when Timbers finally got the ball up front, the whole thing just slowed down. Where Chicago, they get that ball up front, and they just kept going at it. Gleason kept them in the game. He had 2 outstanding saves, and my brother-in-law is a former keeper, so he really appreciated that.
Okay.
But not the best. I will say it was not. If I could go back and choose which game to take him to for his very first experience, that wouldn't be the one, to be honest with you.
But now he's going to have to return the favor, so when Minnesota United open their new stadium, he's going to have to take you when they play Portland.
Better believe it.
I think that's a fair trade-off right there. Well, it was an interesting week in MLS. If you didn't draw, you won, which I know is kind of a weird thing to say, but at the same time, I mean, there was a ton of draws this week.
There were.
Orlando and Philly, as we mentioned last show, we missed, but they drew 2-2. Vancouver, Houston drew 1-1. Chicago, Portland drew 1-1. San Jose, FC Dallas drew 0-0. Colorado, Philly drew 1-1. And NYCFC drew 2-2. So many different draws. A couple different storylines rolling through a couple of these. Good for Philadelphia and Colorado. We mentioned Philadelphia maybe going into Colorado, finally, rebuffing that home fortress that had been Dick's Sporting Goods Park. However, Colorado continues to hold strong, and they're like, look, we don't mind tying. We're just not going to lose at home this year.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
good for them.
Yep.
Good for them, Colorado. We'll see if that affects our power rankings a little bit later on, though, with a draw to a really good team like Philadelphia in the Eastern Conference. Aside from that, you mentioned the Chicago-Portland game. It is what it is. Portland fans, I'm sure, are thrilled because how do you draw a team as poor as Chicago? But as you mentioned, you take a guy like Nagbe out of the mixture, and it's a whole new team.
Yeah, I mean, he's the heartbeat of the team right now,
Exactly.
playing center mid. So it wasn't a horrible result. I think anytime you get a point on the road, it's okay. It's just that they're also losing and drawing at home quite a bit.
Yes, exactly. 2 games I want to make mention of. One that I think maybe had a couple of people really frustrated. Was the RSL Columbus game. In this game, RSL, they scored first in the 13th minute, but then right after that, Columbus, they rattle off 4 goals, Simon, but then they allow RSL to climb back into this game. I'm really having a hard time jumping on the fact of if Columbus is actually a better team or not than RSL. Yao Plata, he was back in this game as well, too, which was great to see. He got that assist on that first goal and scored the final goal. I don't know, but you have to commend the Ola Kamara. He had his first MLS hat trick, so obviously that's a big deal. But you're up 4-1, and you let a team come all the way back to 4-3. That still asks a lot of questions, I feel like.
I can understand the reasoning behind that. At the same time, RSL is a good team, especially with Plata being back. Raimondo, we know he's the superstar that he is in goal. I see this as a lot of hope for Columbus. They've been on a string of draws. Before that, a string of losses. Now they finally get a win. Does this put a string of wins together now? So
that would be nice.
I see more hope in this than I do. What's the opposite of hope, Baxter? Despair?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you look at Columbus right now. I mean, they've played 12 games. They're 3-5-4, 14 total points, and they've won 2 out of their last 6 games.
Yeah,
not necessarily. I mean, they won the first one and they won their last, of the 6, but still.
And let's not forget, Steve Clark made an outstanding save in this game just before halftime from another great Plata spot kick.
And Columbus has only lost 1 of their last 6 games as well, too. They've gotten 3 draws in there as well. Say what you will about draws. I know draws are a poor man's win, obviously, but still, not losing only losing 1 time.
Listen, when you're a team that's struggling at the beginning of the season like Columbus has, you have to treat a draw as a win. You have to celebrate those. So, with again...
I mean, they drew Montreal 4-4, which we can say what we want to about that game, obviously leading to the demise of Kai Kamara leaving. They drew Colorado 1-1, which is a very big, monumental thing for them. And then they drew TFC 0-0. So they've gotten a shutout out of this. They've been scoring goals. They've only lost 1 time. And that one loss that they had was a 1-0 loss to Seattle. It's not like they got blown out of the park.
Right.
So I like what they're doing. They're on the right track, I feel like. We'll see if they can continue on with it in 9th place. Relegation zone, as you were. We'll see what happens with that. Other games that took place this weekend, Simon, certainly one of the games that I wanted to make mention of was the Montreal-LA Galaxy game.
Oof.
A very important game in MLS as a whole because it pitted two of the best teams with the best players against each other. Maybe a preview of what we might see in MLS Cup. I know it's a very early statement to make, but I would get behind a Montreal-LA MLS Cup, honestly.
Yeah, the thing is with this game is it was a game against two teams against two really porous defenses. Strong offenses against porous defenses. And it doesn't get any poorer, see what I did there, than the way Brian Rowe fumbled that Drogba.
Diego Drogba.
The way his shot just, Rowe had it in his hands.
He did.
Bounces right off. That to me looked like a Simon Provan indoor goalkeeper goal.
I got it.
There it goes.
England fans are standing at home going, Rob Green! Basically, it's a little different of how it happened, but once again, you have to commend LA, though, for coming back in this game. They scored first, and Montreal went bam-bam with Piatti and Ontiveros. They were up 2-0 2-1 within a fast amount of time. Those Montreal goals, and then LA answered just 2 minutes later, though. Mike McGee quietly doing really well this season. Continuing to score goals.
He is.
Continuing to score goals, and then in that last-ditch effort, 94th minute, no business going in. But it did. Goalkeepers all over the world are going, it's happened. It happens.
Exactly.
It happens all the time.
It doesn't mean that Rowe is a horrendous goalkeeper.
No, not at all.
He made a bad mistake at the end of a game. And I don't know if you saw when the camera was panned to Bruce Arena on that.
Yeah.
Bruce Arena, you could tell he was just this is how it ends? Really?
Yeah, exactly. I will make one side note. When's the last time LA had just a drop-dead, knockout, amazing goalkeeper? They get all these fantastic star-studded offensive players.
Donovan Ricketts, I would say.
Donovan Ricketts? Early Donovan Ricketts, because they brought him back for a second spell, and he was not as good.
Jaime Pineda from Panama.
Oh, that's right.
He was fantastic. Was it Panama? I think it was Panama.
I think so.
I'll have to look it up, but he was fantastic, and then he wanted more money.
Yeah, and that's obviously the hard part about it. But you think about it, no offense to Brian Rowe, no offense to even when Trey Mitchell played there last year, too, but when's the last time that you had this really crazy good goalkeeper, you talk about all these, the millions they spend on Dos Santos, the millions they spend on Gerrard, on Zardes, on Donovan when he played Robbie Keane. Why have they not gone out and tried to steal away a really big goalkeeper?
And it goes back again, though, to was it really wrong of Pineda to ask for more money? And yes, he does play for the Panamanian national team. Was it wrong for him to ask for more money when he was playing as well as he was? Because now you see, can you imagine if they still had Pineda in goal?
This would be a very, very good team. A very, very good team overall. One other game to make mention of, we mentioned there was a ton of draws this week. The Red Bulls, they've figured it out.
Yes, they have.
They figured it out. They won 3-0 thanks to three goals from Bradley Wright-Phillips and 2 assists from Sasha Kleshton.
Here's a great linking together of what we're just talking about, by the way. Pineda's actually playing for Saprissa right now.
Oh.
And so the Red Bulls will face him in the CONCACAF Champions League.
Interesting.
Anyways, back to MLS talk here.
And you say what you want to about this as well. This game was 3-0 at halftime. This game was 3-0 by the 27th minute. So Toronto had plenty of time to get something to figure out. And then the Red Bulls had plenty of time to get more goals as well, too. I don't mind a 3-0 victory, but when it's 3-0 so early and nothing else happens the rest of the game, I have as a coach, as a fan, as an analyst, I look at this game and I go, well, what happened? What happened the rest of the 72 minutes, 73 minutes of the game? Did we just all say, to heck with it, let's just take the 3 points and be out of here? Or did Toronto just say, well, we don't care anymore? It's something to keep an eye on going forward. That's great that you got up so early, but we know TFC has been on a downward slump after being fairly decent on the road, and now they've come home and don't know what's going on anymore, honestly. So keep an eye on Toronto. Keep an eye on if something happens in that regards that might actually be a good thing. Other than that, Simon, anything else that really struck your fancy this weekend? I wasn't really blown away by too many of the other games.
No, just some news that just came across the line here, though, Baxter. Speaking of the fire, as we were earlier, taking on Portland, Gilberto, who is their DP from Brazil that they actually traded for, it sounds like that he's going to be cut from the team. We haven't seen him been playing much, and I think when you have somebody like Ackham playing the way that he is...
Oh, he's a fantastic player.
You don't need a high-paid player like Gilberto.
Agreed. Do they have any rumors where he might go?
I am looking here. Let's see here. Sounds like he just may end up going back to Brazil and playing in the Brazilian league.
That does happen usually. Towards the end of their careers, guys like that like to go back home and spend time with their family and be back where they're used to being. One other thing I want to make mention of, one other game, a draw that should not have ended in a draw, but give all credit to Orlando for coming back in this game. NYCFC Orlando, NYCFC were up 2-0. Orlando battled back with goals in the 72nd and 94th minute. Obviously, the game tying goal came off of an incredible bicycle kick from Kevin Molino. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. It was a SportsCenter top 10 play. It bounced off the bar. Josh Saunders could do nothing about it. It was just an incredible play. But at the same time, NYCFC, you got to press. You got to press. It was incredible that they let something like that happen. And this game also could have been a 3-2 game as well because David Villa slipped on the penalty kick spot and skied his penalty kick as well. Maybe that goes back to the fact that they're playing on a baseball diamond. And I think that part of the stadium is where was covered over the baseball infield as well, too.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, we made mention of that on the show last week about how ridiculous of a field that is. One last thing here, too, Baxter. That hat trick that Bradley Wright Phillips had was a record setter.
Really?
Within 27 minutes, it's the quickest hat trick in MLS history.
Wow.
So maybe they knew that and they were like, okay, well, we set a record, so now we're
just fine. Let's sit back. Let's chill. No big deal. I don't know. All right, let's look ahead. Well, I need to congratulate you, Simon, because you beat me in predictions this week. You finished with a nice 6-5 record.
I think that's the first winning record for either of us all year.
I think so.
You may have snuck one in there earlier.
I think I've gotten one early in the year, but yes, you finished 6-5. You're now 52-88 overall. I am 47-93. The race to 100.
It all evens out when you look at our fantasy points. When you beat me 93 to 54 or something like that. I had a great
week this last weekend.
Fantastic week, yes.
But this week will be interesting with the Copa America and some of our players being gone and all that other stuff. Yeah, I was thrilled by my team this last week. And my big midfield, they came up for me. Lee Wynn, Diego Valeri, Chris Pontius, and Ignacio Piatti stepped up and I got 22 points from Andre Blake as well in goal. So
there you go.
I was thrilled by that. Let's look ahead this week. First off, the games that we've got going on.
Very short week.
Short week, not
Only
a lot happening.
7 games, I believe?
I do believe so. A couple Canadian Championship games being mixed in here as well. Philadelphia and Columbus. Game number 1 taking place, well, technically on the day of taping here, June 1st.
Right.
They're taking place. There's 5 games taking place tonight, so obviously our predictions at this point will be futile when you hear this show on Friday. Either way, we're still going to predict because this is still points for us to go for. Philly, Columbus.
Yeah, it's interesting because Blake won't be with Philadelphia due to his national team call-up. But interesting that Philadelphia has one of the best home records in MLS and Columbus has one of the worst away records. Although their new Kamara scoring a hat trick, that changes things up. But I think Philadelphia is still going to take this one.
Okay, that's who I have exactly in this one as well. I think they are a very talented team. Regardless, I mean, Andre Blake is a huge part of this team, but I still like Philly beating up on Columbus. Canadian Championship, Ottawa Fury taking on Vancouver.
Now, it's easy to say that Vancouver's going to take this, and I am going to say that. I think Vancouver will. Ottawa can be a tough team in this tournament, but I'm going with Vancouver because they don't have a weekend game, which means they get to play everybody in this one.
They're going to go after this game, so I'm sorry in advance, Ottawa. TFC and Montreal, same situation. No weekend games. This is their game for the weekend.
Yes.
TFC hosts.
We don't know if Giovinco's going to play, though. He's been injured. Maybe he's saved for the Canadian Championship, maybe not.
Maybe.
I think Montreal's playing too well. I'm going to go with Montreal on this one.
That's exactly who I have as well. DC and Seattle. Will we differentiate on this one?
Well, let's see here. Again, interesting. DC's one of the worst home teams.
Yep.
Whereas
Seattle just lost on the road to the Revs, though, 2-1.
Well, I was going to say, and Seattle's one of the worst away teams. So this is a tough one, but I'm going to go with DC on this one, Baxter.
You're 4 for 4, Simon.
Oh, how about that?
This never happens. Portland and San Jose.
Nagy's still not playing, and I peeked over at what you had. I shouldn't have, but that was my take as well. Going with a draw, Baxter.
Oh my goodness, 5 for 5. NYCFC RSL. Will we keep it going?
I'm not going to look at your prediction this time, but I'm taking RSL on this one.
That's who I have too. Holy cow. FC Dallas, Houston.
This one's too easy, isn't it?
Maybe.
FC Dallas?
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's who I have, too. I was waiting for you to be like, oh, it's so easy. I'm going to pick a draw. I'll be like, oh, great, thanks. LA and Sporting Kansas City. Trey Mitchell. The Trey Mitchell Bowl. His last team against his current team.
Boy, it makes you wonder what's going to happen. But Dos Santos is playing with the Galaxy. Got to go with LA.
That's who I have too.
Wow.
USA, Colombia, Simon. Who do you have?
I got Colombia.
Yes.
I already announced that earlier in the show.
We agree
basically
on everything this week. This never happens.
Hey, historic weekend in MLS last weekend. Historic day.
Oh, my
on two
goodness.
Up front.
Who would have guessed? I never would have guessed, honestly.
So if you're listening to the show, now you know who to pick. The exact opposite.
Exactly. Pick draws for everything. See, this would be
not a single draw from Simon.
No.
Heather. Yes, I used myself in the third person.
Draw.
Oh, we did.
Yes, Baxter and Simon both chose Portland
right.
and San Jose
that's
as a draw. I feel like one of us should change it just in case. I'll take San Jose. I don't know.
I'm sticking with the draw
because I need to move up in points.
You do.
I'm horribly behind you.
Yeah.
I was glad that we agreed. I really am.
It's kind of like my fantasy team. I'm going all in with LA. Basically with Portland as well. And there's not many players to choose from this weekend.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, we're going to go to a break. We'll wrap things up. Power rankings, I believe, and closing thoughts right after this. You're listening to Two Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. Finishing things up here on another edition of Two Up Front, presented by ShopFutsal.com. I'm Baxter Colburn.
This is Simon Provan.
Okie doke, Simon. We agreed for a moment, and then it was gone. I need to move up in the standings. I can't afford to be friends this week, Simon. We can be friends for 9/10 of the week, just not the. I don't know. And watch Portland win, and then neither of us get the point. You'd get the point as a fan.
That's right.
So that works out well for you.
That's one of those, I win both ways.
It's true.
The only way I don't win is if San Jose wins.
True. I would, though. All right, let's look at the power rankings. Last week, Simon, we had the same teams in different places. This week, we have most of the same teams, different places again, except for me, I have one new team.
You do have a new team. I've got the same teams, just in a different order this week.
Exactly. All right. Let's start with who I have at 5 and you have on the outside first. We both are sharing the sentiment.
Columbus, we've been talking about them losing, then drawing for a while, and they finally get a really good win against a really good team. Not a really good win, but a win against a good team. So I've got Columbus sitting just on the outside of this.
And I have them at number 5, mostly because they've done fairly well the last couple of games as well. I mean, They've only, as we mentioned, they've only lost 1 out of their last 6 games. They've been scoring goals, and that big victory against RSL, I know they gave up a bit of a lead, but still, a win's a win. They got 4 goals. They got a hat trick from Ola Kamara.
Nobody cares how many goals you gave up if you still won the game at the end of the day.
Exactly. Philadelphia is my number 4 team this week. As we mentioned, they've done a good job. They haven't really lost a lot recently. They haven't been good. They haven't been bad. They're doing well.
Yeah, I've got LA as my 5th team, and we agree with Philadelphia on the 4th. The thing with Philadelphia is they are on a 8-game unbeaten streak, but the thing is they've only won 2 games within that time. LA I dropped a bit because that's a game that they should not have lost in Montreal. Actually has me a little bit worried for them, the way they finished that game. So I'm not dropping them out just yet, because at the end of the day, if we're talking, if we're pitting any team against LA right now, it's very hard for me to pick against LA, so I'm keeping them at number 5.
Okay. Philly, as we mentioned, are both of our number 4s. FC Dallas is my number 3. Last week, they were my number 2. I've dropped them down to 3. Not bad, not great. They're doing good. They're winning, and they're doing well. But at the same time,
Yeah, well, I've got Dallas as my number 2. I'm keeping them at my number 2. My number 2 and my number 1 are still the same from last week. I have Red Bulls at 3 just because I'm not sold yet. Yes, they got a 3-game win streak going, but we're talking Chicago, New York City FC. Toronto, decent win, but that also, again, was an injured Toronto team. So I'm not sold on them yet. That 7-0 scoreline, I think it was, they really got themselves up for that derby.
Yeah.
But I do have them at number 3, FC Dallas at my number 2, because in my mind, they've been playing well. Their draw was against a good San Jose team, and they had 3 wins before that, also against good opponents, Portland, Seattle. Okay, New England. So maybe not as great as I was thinking here at first, but nevertheless, it's a 4-game unbeaten streak.
Exactly, and that's why on the flip side, you did all the things that I needed you to do for my number 2, the Red Bulls. They've scored 11 goals in 3 games.
Yeah.
I don't care who that's against.
Right, that's
11
true.
goals. Bradley Wright Phillips has found his form. He's scoring in bunches. He's got 2 hat tricks. He's got 5 goals in 3 games. So, credit to him.
Yeah, we shall see, though, that they have the week off.
Mm-hmm.
Do they suffer a bit from this momentum that they've been on?
That's true. That's a very good point. And then finally, our number 1, that has been a number 1 since week 11, Colorado Rapids.
You can't argue against it. Yeah, they had a draw against Philadelphia, but that's what I had predicted, and this is where my logic goes, Baxter, is if you did what I predicted you're going to do in a positive way, I'm not going to drop you in my standings.
True.
Plus, to be the man, you got to beat the man.
Exactly.
Nobody has beaten Colorado in, 10 games?
Something like that. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
9 games. 9-game unbeaten streak, and that's more wins than draws, by the way. 6 wins to 3 draws.
That's fine with me. Let us know your thoughts about our power rankings on Facebook, 2 Up Front, on Twitter, at Baxter Colburn, at Simon Provan, at 2 Up Front Soccer. Final segment of the show, Simon. All right, it is time for our I Believe segment. Simon Provan, what do you got?
I believe that Chicharito will win the Golden Boot in the Copa America.
That's a very, yes, I agree. Absolutely agree with
By
you.
the way, in our I Believe sound effect that we have,
Yes.
if you listen closely, it sounds like there's one man that's in a lot of pain. Next week, listen really closely.
Listen to that. Listen to that really close. I believe that Christian Pulisic will score at least once in the Copa America.
And I agree with that, too.
And social media will lose their godforsaken minds because they did that when he scored a fairly simple goal against Bolivia.
Yes, but 17 years old, playing in the Bundesliga, he is one kid that we can get excited about.
You're right.
The media and everybody else needs to stop using this, the savior of American soccer.
He's not. Just chill.
But
it's too early.
There's nothing to be saved.
Mm-hmm.
Soccer in America is in a great place for the age that it's at.
But there's no Landon Donovan anymore. We'll be fine. I think it'd be funny, too, as he continues to move on in his career, he changes his number every time. He's 17 for being 17, right. Just continues to change it up all through the ranks. I think that would be kind of funny. Anyway, thank you so much.
I'll cut you off here. Does he start? Does he start any games?
He will. He'll start at least one.
All right.
I think he will. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us here on another edition of 2 Up Front. Special thanks to Brian Dunseth, Andrew Dykstra, Trey Mitchell, and Lydia Williams for stopping by the program. We love you all. Thank you so much. And tell your friends about the show as well, too. You can find it on Fridays at 11:30 a.m. Central Time on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Yeah, you can also find us on Facebook. 2 Up Front, put that in the search button, and like the page. We want to get to 500 likes by the end of the game, by the end of the U.S.-Columbia game. Find us on Twitter at 2 Up Front Soccer. Our personal handles at Baxter Colburn, at Simon Provan.
He's Simon Provan. I'm Baxter Colburn, with our manager being the one above. We are 2 Up Front.